How's it going out there? It's November 30th. I'm Frank Curzio, host of the Wall Street Unplugged podcast, where I break down headlines and tell you what's really moving these markets. Wow, last week was supposed to be relaxing. Thanksgiving turkey. Most had a 4-day weekend. You hung out with your family. You ate a ton. Watched some football. Probably argued with one of those family members that you don't like, which is kind of normal. You woke up late on Friday after stuffing your face with turkey, and you put on the news and just realized, oh shit, the market's open today? I thought it was closed on Friday. Then you take a closer look, and every stock on the screen is down 10% plus, other than some of the large caps. We saw 3-4% declines in the major indices, and a lot of names got smoked. Much, much worse. So we wake up and we're like, what's going on? And what is the news? What's making the market go lower? We're looking at a new variant called Omicron, which is spreading across Africa and starting to show up in other countries. And this really spooked the markets. Now, there's very little information on it other than the lead doctor in South Africa saying that the newly infected cases she's seen thus far, and I'm quoting her, right? These people are showing, quoting her, very mild. She used the word very, very mild symptoms. Okay, very mild. Doesn't matter. Investors started running to the exits, triggered the algos, and holy cow, saw a massive sell-off. Everybody's worried. It's crazy. The market's coming down, even though we're about 4.5% off of our all-time highs, right? You wouldn't think that. You would think we're down 20, 30, 40%. A lot of names got killed, especially the reopened names. Cruises, airlines, hotels. Now, expect the media to play this up as the end of the world virus again. Whether it's Delta 2.0, it's going to sweep across the U.S. and result in further lockdowns. And they're going to tell you better get vaccinated right away. You need to get vaccinated. If you got vaccinated, get the booster right now. You got to get it. Even though 85% of our population is vaccinated, right? They're going to blame 15% of the people for causing whatever they cause. Again, I won't really get into the politics on that part. I will get into politics today. But this is a response. This is a response we're seeing, right? It's like the craziness and the politicians. And if the governor of New York, and this is the governor that took over for Cuomo, right? If he got thrown out of office, just declared a state of emergency. So she's cutting elective surgeries to basically free up hospitals. Even though there's not one person that has been infected with the new variant in the state of New York. That's awesome if you think about it. Talk about preparation. Holy cow. Now, for me, as you know, and I think the reason why you listen to this podcast, I'd rather look at the facts and data. I know this makes me an outcast because once you believe something these days and you hear it on TV, you follow your favorite person, it's fact. Nobody's going to change your mind, regardless if I'm providing like facts, right? You listen to someone's opinion, you think, wow, this is fact. This is factual. Oh my God. These people who didn't get the vaccine are killing everybody. I mean, things that you hear in the media that are just hilarious, right? Like, you get the vaccine. You're supposed to be protected anyway. It has nothing to do with whether someone else is vaccinated or not, but that's okay. You're going to believe what you want to believe. And I know that personally from all the pushback I got during COVID and covering this. I want to say really deep dive into this because the more I dug in February and then in March when this hit, the more I was seeing data being reported on news stations that I trusted, which was absolutely false from what I was hearing from leading doctors across the country who listen to this podcast because most doctors love stocks and love investing, and they happen to listen to this podcast. I thought it was funny because the data coming from these doctors, and this is over, through 2020, even before the vaccine was rolled out, even after the vaccine, every single one of them told me, don't mention their name. I can't mention their name. Think about that for a minute. These are people that know the virus better than anyone. They're treating tons of people, right? They care about your health. They don't have politics involved. And their data was being suppressed to the point where they may get fired if they speak out against the status quo, which is insane. It's insane when you think about it. But let's take a closer look at what we know right now. And the first place to talk about this and this new variant was South Africa, right? So I mentioned that doctors discovered and patients were infected said that these symptoms are very mild and could be treated at home, and 0 of these patients have been admitted to hospitals. That's what she said. Also, this new variant does not result in a loss of smell or taste like Delta, and there's been no major drop in oxygen levels from the new variant. That's pretty significant, right? Since that's really the cause of death. That's why you needed so many ventilators and we ran out of ventilators. Now, most of the people infected were under 40. And I don't know if that's telling us much, because you could say, well, maybe they weren't. I would say a lot of those people were not vaccinated. But, Africa is among the lowest vaccinated when you look at the percent of most of countries. When, compared to other countries, their rate is a lot lower. So I'm sure a lot of those people under 40 who contracted this were not vaccinated. But it's good news that this variant, they haven't really seen a big impact on older people yet, who most are vaccinated. I'm sure if you look at the vaccination rates in Africa and other places, the people that you're going to see who vaccinate the most are older, and they should be vaccinated, because we know that COVID-19 specifically target older people with underlying conditions. If you were under 50, you didn't have anything to worry about. Almost anything to worry about. So at 99% survival rates, you had nothing to worry about if you're under 50, right? So older people, yes, we knew who were targeted. So the fact that you're not seeing this spread to the older generation, maybe it's because of the vaccine, whatever, that was good news. Now, several countries reported that they detected Omicron in patients, and this includes now, outside of, countries in Africa, but you have Canada, Austria, Portugal, Netherlands, and Austria. So now people are getting worried. Holy shit, this thing's spreading. And what are countries doing? Full-blown crisis protocol. And Israel banned all foreigners from entry. Not from Africa. All foreigners. You can't get it. You can't get to Israel right now. Australia, U.S. restricting travel from several African countries. I still think that's a little premature. UK reintroduced mask mandates. And again, all this is being done when we don't have clear data on this new variant. We just found out about it a couple days ago. We don't know. Now, why is that a big deal? That these guys are rushing to just protect you, and you got to worry. Why is this a big deal? Because lockdowns, restrictions, they're not healthy. They're not healthy. We now have data showing these measures cause massive harm to so many people. We saw massive increases in cancer rates, depression, suicide, childhood obesity, drug overdose. Now, you look at the stats from 2019 for those things I just mentioned, compare them today, you're going to be blown away. You're going to be like, holy, I cannot believe that. You maybe say, well, Frank, we needed to do this. We needed to lock down until at least most of the population was vaccinated. Really? Did we? Again, I like facts. I don't know if you like facts and numbers. I do. I'm a research analyst. I like it. This is going to be an interesting fact here. So we look at the numbers. In 2020, we saw 362,000 deaths. And most of our population was not vaccinated yet, since they just started rolling out the vaccine in December. So now we're out the vaccine. Holy cow. 85% of our population is now vaccinated, or close to that. But interesting, because when you look at this year's stats, and we still have 1 month left, by the way. Remember, 362,000 deaths in 2020. This year from COVID, we have 415,000 people that have died from COVID, even though we have most of our population vaccinated. I'd like to know why that is. I think that's worth researching a little bit. Do we have to lock down? Because it seems like we really didn't need those measures. And it's not like, well, we're protecting you, and it's okay. There's consequences. There's massive consequences. We're seeing it throughout everything across the board. I mean, even my kids are at least a half a year behind. They're just catching up because, and they're in Florida. They were going to school the whole entire time. By the way, Florida's rates are the lowest among any single state, which is amazing, because we were told our governor is a killer and killing people and stuff like that. Again, interesting, right? So we kept everything open. We were smart, mask indoors for most of the time. Then we removed that pretty much quicker than everybody else. And now we're seeing some of the lowest infection rates of any state. Why? Why don't we answer that question? Because maybe we don't need lockdowns. Maybe we don't need masks. This is what we should be doing right now, studying this shit, right? But we're not. Why are we studying this? Again, those numbers open up the door to questions, and we want to get this right. And at the end of the day, we don't want cancer rates to surge. We don't want depression to surge. We don't want to be locked down unless we have to, unless we think we're going to die if we get infected. It's clearly not the case. I mean, so you look at those stats and saying, how could that be? So many of us are vaccinated now. Not to mention we were told that after we got vaccinated, this is what we were told, facts, would no longer need to wear masks. And these vaccines are, whatever, 93, 94, 95% plus effective, which I said that's how high they would be because I have good contacts in biotech. And one great guy who said this is going to be well above 90%, which we never ever see with vaccines in terms of effectiveness. I remember reporting that on Twitter, and I got wrecked, and it came out, and I got a lot of emails saying, holy shit, that wasn't me. That was because I had access to the right information, the right people. People don't have a political agenda. But we're told 95% effectiveness, or it's going to prevent you from getting COVID. You're good. Get it. There's no talk about other variants and how the vaccine won't protect you against them. No, nobody said that. I mean, I don't remember our politicians, Pfizer, Moderna CEO coming out and saying that when they first rolled out these vaccines. You need it. They didn't say, well, after you get this, you're probably going to need a booster. Nobody said that. Booster shot. But now we're talking boosters. Boosters here, boosters there, which is basically a flu shot that we're going to need to take every year, or basically we will be forced to take them every year unless we want our freedoms taken away from us, like eating out, right? If it's indoors or attending conferences or actually going to work. We have places mandating that you need a vaccine in order to show up to work. Now they're going to do it with boosters forever. But it's kind of amazing how the narrative changed so much since we launched the vaccines a year ago. To how getting the vaccine is going to prevent COVID, to getting the vaccine will result in you getting much milder symptoms once you're infected again. Right? So they got to cover their asses. But it's interesting. And all we want is the facts. We want information. We have access to so much data, yet there's not enough data being released. We still don't know how long natural immunity lasts. So if you get COVID, we still don't know. There's not a doctor that would tell you because we still don't know. But I know this, people who got COVID, it's longer than 12 months. And it seems like it's going 13, 14, 15 months now because these aren't the people that are getting infected with Delta. The people getting infected with Delta are people who haven't had COVID. Again, you can look at studies in other countries which they care about getting it right and just presenting the data that's, of what they're finding. But these aren't people who had COVID and recovered and are getting Delta. These are people who are vaccinated that didn't have those natural immunities or didn't have COVID, and those are the people that are getting it. Anyway, as expected, so a major panic from some countries in terms of their quick response, and especially the markets. Now, the market sell-off is interesting, and it did rebound Monday, only to go lower today. I think that's mostly because Powell said testified at Congress about how this new variant could cause inflation to rise further. Don't worry, I'm going to address that part later on because I like to take questions. I'm going to take a couple questions after this. But to me, the market sell-off is interesting. Omicron, it's not Delta, right? Delta caught everyone by surprise. Why? Because our asshole politicians and health officials refused to publish data on Delta, showing that most people getting infected were those who were vaccinated. Again, they didn't have COVID. And you can look right now, professional athletes. You're a Cowboy fan. How many Cowboys are infected right now? They're probably not going to play. They're not going to play this week. They're vaccinated. It's mandated that you have to be, if you're a professional athlete, so like Kyrie Irving's not playing, you have to get vaccinated. You have to get vaccinated. So now you're vaccinated, and now all of them are getting infected. They get infected with Delta. But how long did it take for that news to come out? And that's pretty significant for elders, right? And now they're like, well, it does protect you against Delta, and you're going to get mild symptoms, but still, if I'm an older person with underlying conditions, that's data that I wish I knew that they had access to right away. I might not have gone outside, thinking I'm protected. And remember, it's not in their best interest to announce something like this right away. Because that's going to mean that they were wrong in telling us that Pfizer and Moderna vaccines were 95% effective in preventing coronavirus infection. So instead of preparing us, they said little. And we saw Delta spread wildly. Many people who were vaccinated wound up catching this new strain, which turned out to be, again, much milder than the original COVID strain, especially for those who got vaccinated, which is good news. But now we fast forward to today, and we look at the new strand. We are fully prepared if this new variant comes to America and starts spreading. Again, this may not even happen. There's not a case in America yet. Plus, there's very, very little data out on this new strand. However, let's say the new strand is worse than expected. It starts to travel from country to country. It comes to the U.S., goes through every single state. High infection rates, hospital rates surge, and people start becoming sick, and we start seeing deaths. Hopefully that's not the case. But that's the worst case scenario, right? This is going to result in more lockdowns, mass mandates, lower GDP across the world. Again, that's a worst case scenario, what we see. We didn't see that with Delta. Delta didn't cause more deaths. Didn't cause more hospitalizations. It caused hospitalization, but not more than COVID-19. However, we're already aware of this new variant. I mean, healthcare companies like Moderna have already announced booster candidates that are targeting these new mutations, including the one present in Omicron. And of course, the Moderna CEO, and he said this morning, said this strain could be very, very dangerous. Very dangerous. Also, he didn't say that yesterday because he was on CNBC. I watched him on and did some interviews and saying, we could roll out if we need to or whatever, right? So this is a person that doesn't have access or anything. He knows nothing about the new strand, right? Almost none of us do right now. Well, now all the scientists are working on it. He knows nothing from yesterday afternoon to today. He knows nothing. But this morning, this is a guy that does an interview. And he says this strain could be very, very dangerous. Out of nowhere, from yesterday to today. If he said that yesterday, the markets would have came down. He said this morning. That's being reported. And it's all over. It's all over the media. But this makes sense from his perspective, right? You're pushing this agenda because it will result in massive, massive, massive sales to Moderna. They have to create a new vaccine. You might be saying, well, really? Is it that big of a deal? I think it's a big deal. As someone that covers stocks, I don't know if I've seen an explosion in sales in a 2-year period like this in the history of companies. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you can find something. Do some research for me. Do some homework and send it to me. I'll announce your name and everything. But you let me know of a company that increased sales this fast. So Moderna, sales for this company went from $60 million in 2019 to $17 billion this year. Believe me, it's in Moderna's, the CEO's interest to say that this is very, very dangerous. And we're going to have to roll out another vaccine because it's going to result in another $17 billion in sales because it's going to be mandated that you have to take it. Of course he's going to say it. He's not going to say, listen, we're good. You don't need boosters. You don't need anything. No, Pfizer's not going to say that. And you trust Pfizer? Look at the lawsuits on Pfizer over the past 20 years. With the FDA and bribing and stuff like that. Just look at that. It's insane. And I like Gottlieb, but for him to be on the board of Pfizer is kind of questionable. Anyway, that's another rant or story. But getting back to the prepared part, how we're prepared, Pfizer said it can make a new vaccine inside of 3 months to target this, and that's if needed. And the FDA is going to approve this almost immediately, or grant them emergency use authorization, right? EUA. And then Pfizer said it'll take another 6 weeks to ship. So we can roll out this new vaccine or booster out in about 4 to 5 months. And again, that's if we see the worst case scenario. That's the worst case scenario. We're going to know more in a few weeks. Like, is the current vaccines effective against this new strand? Do we need a booster? Is Omicron dangerous, or most people still seeing very mild symptoms? We're going to know more and more data. So expect a lot of volatility over the next few weeks, as there would be a lot of shitty reporting from major news outlets, just like we saw with COVID-19 and Delta. For me, I care about you, your health, your family's health, and making sure you're positioned from an investment perspective as this circus is going to make their rounds again. We see it coming. So here's what you need to know. We're fully prepared to tackle this, especially since we went through the Delta crisis, which surprised the hell out of everybody. This isn't surprising us. We know about this new strand. Scientists are all over it. We can quickly have vaccines ready if needed. And we already have the supply chains in place for fast distribution, which was a problem, especially with Pfizer. Have to be lowered to a certain temperature. And we're worried. It takes a while. I mean, giving vaccines to everybody and rolling them out, that's a massive process. And how fast these guys did it is pretty incredible. It's unbelievable, actually. I mean, just to get the approval and a vaccine that's effective and roll it out that quickly is amazing. Inside like 7-8 months, that's pretty amazing. But we have the supply chain. We have the logistics set up already. Again, if needed. Now, from a stock perspective, I've read a lot of reports on this because I like to hear other opinions. There's Bank of America, Jefferies, JP Morgan, and Goldman, again, stuff that I have access to. And I'm going to cite Goldman here. I think they came up with a good report, which came with several different scenarios from this new variant, right? Including the worst case and best case for the new variant. But let's focus on the worst case, where Omicron transmits more quickly than Delta and also evades immunity against infections and also causes similarly severe disease. It's also where we're going to see lockdowns around the world. Now, under this, and this is a worst case scenario, this is Goldman, has a chart showing that global GDP would fall 2.5% in Q1. And then into Q2 this year, right? So we're looking at Q1, Q2. So global GDP is going to fall. Then they see GDP going up to 3% by Q4. Okay, we're talking 2022. We're talking about next. So Q1, Q2 of next year. All right, not this year. This year we're pretty much in Q4. So Q1, Q2, they're seeing a 2.5% decline in global GDP, which is significant. But then they see GDP going up to 3% by Q4 2022. So that's next time this year, right? Keep the time frame. I want to talk about a 12-month time frame. First 2 quarters, significant decline, and then we rebound significantly, back up to 3%. Now, what's interesting here is Goldman's global GDP target without the new strand is roughly 3%. And that 3% is Q4. Okay, and that's the downside scenario, the worst case scenario. But yet their baseline without Omicron is the same exact thing. It's around 3% in Q4. Again, shouting a lot of numbers, I want to make sure you understand this, okay? So what is this telling you? The Omicron could cause disruption. However, like COVID, it's going to be temporary, right? It's going to be a temporary disruption. And you look at GDP forecasts, you're going to have the same outcome by this time next year. However, it's either going to be steady if this variant doesn't spread, or it's going to be extremely volatile over the next 2 quarters and then go back to normal by the end of 2022. Hopefully, I'm not losing you here, because the meaning of this is simple. If you're a long-term investor, you should be buying here, not selling, since this is a temporary setback. And again, that's if the worst-case scenario hits and it spreads through the U.S. and we see mandates and lockdowns. I don't think we're going to go to lockdowns too much, maybe in New York, California. You know, it just doesn't like other countries right now. Maybe we see that, but we're probably not going to go lockdown. But you're going to see things close and maybe travel restrictions and stuff like that, worst-case scenario. But by 2022, a year from now, we're going to have the same outcome. It's either going to be, hey, it's going to chug along higher and higher, and higher, or we're going to see a massive drop followed by a huge rise as GDP comes back and everything reopens. Same thing. So if you're looking at airlines, hotels, cruise lines, and these got nailed, if you didn't get a chance to buy before the surge, here's your opportunity. Because everything's going to open up eventually. I don't know when it would happen, but eventually it's going to open up. I'm not talking about 5 years from now. And, you're investing in uranium like 7 years ago. And you're like, well, 7 years from now, we're going to see prices start to go higher. And I said, no, this is 12 months away. This is 12 months away. But here's your opportunity. Because everything's going to open up. And when it does, like we've seen with airlines and hotels, these companies have incredible pricing power. And they just reported blockbuster earnings. And for airlines to be trading at the same levels as last year, at this time, when nobody was flying and the vaccine was just being rolled out, that is insane. Especially with the quarters that they had. There's going to be restrictions in travel, the international travel. Yes, there will. It'll hurt growth a little bit. But these guys, people are flying around the U.S. They're still flying. And again, this is premature, but buying these things at these levels, at these dirt cheap levels, if we go back and we're closer to the U.S. to getting back to pre-pandemic levels, if we do that around the world, these things are doubles and triples from here, inside of 18 to 36 months. That might not be a lot if you're a crypto investor, because sometimes you get 10x returns in weeks, months. We saw that with crypto intelligence, a lot of our picks. But that's a massive, massive gain. Here's your opportunity to buy a lot of these numbers, a lot of these names. But watching TV, reading the newspaper, look, just try not to get crazy. You're looking at these news outlets, their job is to scare the shit out of you. This way you read more. Nobody wants to read a story that says Omicron is mild and you have nothing to worry about. That's not exciting. You know what's exciting to these news agencies? CNN having the COVID-19 death count on the screen every single day for 6 months. That gets people to watch. That's why they do it. Let's scare the shit out of you. They're not going to tell you 97%. The recovery rate for COVID-19 is 97%. They're not going to tell you that. They're just going to put a death rate and showing all the people that are dying and scare the shit out of you, right? That's how it makes you watch it, and that's leads directly to profits. And don't underestimate that for 1 freaking second. when it comes to Pfizer, Moderna, when it comes to these guys, you think they're doing the right thing? You're crazy. There's a reason why we don't have cures and only treatments for diseases, because there's a cure, you no longer they can't sell drugs anymore. The massive incentive for these publicly traded companies to continue to see those profits go higher and higher and higher and higher, do not underestimate the importance of that. That's worth seeing a few deaths here and there. We've seen that with auto companies when they refuse to recall things, and they have data showing, okay, well, if this happens, okay, this might result in this many deaths, and then a lawsuit would be this much. Okay, let's not recall right now because we're going to make a shit ton of money. Just like Morgan Stanley and Henry Blodgett. Just keep making these stupid calls on all these freaking technology companies into the tech bubble. Who cares? What are we going to do? We'll get fined a few $1 billion. We made freaking $50 billion. Who cares? We'll throw out Henry Blodgett for a couple of years. He'll start Business Insider. He'll be fine or whatever. Again, it's all planned. I mean, there's a reason why they have slush funds at these places for when they're going to get sued by the SEC or whatever and admit no guilt. But there's funds set up where they're taking this money out of because they expect it. They don't just, they just expect it and say, oh, this could happen. There's all data, analytics, and numbers behind this, knowing what's going to happen, the connections that they have, or when they would come after, what they're going to come after for. They have this. Welcome to corporate America. Money talks. That's the way it is. But if you look at the facts, which is telling us right now this variant is not deadly, and most who are getting it are young with mild symptoms, no hospitalizations. If it turns out to be worse, I suggest using a pullback as a monster buying opportunity. Because like I said, not only will the world open up again to travel, but more importantly, this scare and this new variant is going to influence the Fed, who will now hold off on raising rates because they have to. They have to hold off. They really don't have the data. If this turns out to be worse than expected and you're raising rates in this environment, holy cow. I mean, a lot of these companies are going to lose pricing power. Say if you have to lock down some of these places again or just have restrictions. You already have labor shortages, supply chain constraints, which, by the way, my data shows has been getting better over the past 3 weeks. Even Walmart cited that it's getting better, which is a positive. Want to report the news, good, bad, whatever, right? Just again, it's data. But now the Fed, he's testifying in Congress going, hey, we might have, inflation and supply chain worries with this new strain, even though we have no data on it. You testify with Congress already? How about do it 3 weeks from now when you actually find out if this hits the U.S. or if we need to worry about this? I'm saying buying back and using a pullback as a buying opportunity. I'm not saying that other factors can't push down the markets, whether it's geopolitical risk, higher taxes, terrible policies. But looking at Omicron specifically, this should not be a reason to sell, but to buy on weakness, because this is a temporary problem. And it's a good temporary problem because it scares the shit out of people that they run. And that usually results in stocks becoming very, very cheap. But it's probably not going to be a big deal in terms of deaths and hospitalizations. We're prepared. The Fed's going to have to keep rates on hold probably longer than they want, which is, sorry for cursing here, fucking insane. I have no idea why you didn't start raising rates 2 quarters ago when every single asset class not only rebounded since COVID, but they're still trading near their all-time highs. Be it pedal to the metal? Now look, now this comes and you're like, whoa, now you can't raise rates. Are you going to taper? Probably even less than you planned on. So going to be buying bonds, keeping rates low. But again, this signals it's a buying opportunity. I don't want you to go in and buy all at once, because if Omicron turns out to be worse than expected, we could see stocks pull back further on emotions. That's going to create even better buying opportunity for those who intend on holding positions longer than 12 months. If you're looking for trading opportunities, it's different. If you're a long-term holder, you should be ignoring this event. Almost all the studies I see, and it makes sense. And we even saw it with the playbook with COVID. Massive decline followed by huge positive. But if you went to sleep in 2019 and you woke up today, you wouldn't really notice anything. In terms of earnings are growing, net household wealth's at an all-time high, all asset classes are higher, things are cool. Yet, living through those 2 years, you saw a massive decline in the markets, followed by, gradual steady rise, and then some companies exploded. But if you take out all those emotions and you just say, hey, I'm holding the stocks for 24 months, you're doing pretty well. And you're sleeping good at night by not watching the news. But anyway, if you're still nervous about this new variant, that's okay. It's fine. But just remember, COVID-19, the recovery rate is above 97% for the entire population and over 99% for those under 50 years old. That was COVID-19. If you told anyone that is risking anything, that there's a 97% chance that you're going to be okay if you take this risk, almost 100% of the people would take the risk, since those odds are insane. But yet you would think they're a lot worse than that, and the recovery rates are a lot worse than that. And why is that? Thank the media, thank the news sources, and thank them for scaring the shit out of you. Anyway, from a health standpoint, I wouldn't worry. From an investor standpoint, an economic fallout is going to be brought on, not by Omicron itself, but by our government and politicians. It's how crazy they're going to get this time around restrictions that clearly didn't work based on the number of deaths, which are higher in 2021, despite most of the population being vaccinated. Mind-boggling to me. And also, those consequences from being isolated, which I talked about earlier, and locked down. Cancer rates, suicide rates, depression, obesity rates have surged enormously. I mean, especially in children when it comes to obesity rates. And these are the hidden consequences of locking down, which now we have stats on this, and it's everywhere. So that's my take on this, getting lots of emails. And I want to take a few questions. I usually like to keep this to 30 minutes. It's going to go a little bit long because I want to take a couple of questions because they were good this week. First one's from RP. He goes, Frank, Powell is scheduled to meet with Congress tomorrow morning, which is today, and warned that inflation will go higher due to further supply constraints brought on by the new variant. Is this factored into the market? Does this mean they would change their transitory stance on inflation? I love Powell. So Powell's been saying that inflation is transitory. Okay, we were very early to this. And I'm proud to be early to this, talk about inflation. Something I really rarely talked about, that we're going to have runaway inflation. And when you look at some of these scholars, the economists, award-winning, whatever, right, that study this data, and this is important for every young investor out there, because older investors are usually set in their ways, right? And I've learned this, which is important, is a lot of these people look at the past, analyze data to dictate the future, or to try to predict the future, or come up with the right outcomes. And that's where they made a massive mistake when it comes to so many different things, with the market going higher, with people compare P ratios today to P ratios peaking at other times and how the market crash. Nonsense. Bullshit. Because right now, we are in unprecedented times. This never existed before. We never had interest rates at zero, which the Fed was supposed to keep at zero or close to zero for a couple of years, and decided, hey, stock market's good, everything's fine, everyone's happy. Let's keep them at near zero for 11 years. What? Then COVID hits, right? And we look at COVID and we say, okay, we're injecting $10.5 trillion into the economy, handing checks directly to people. And what do? Well, we compare it to the last time this happened, and we had all the stimulus, which was supposed to be over $700 billion, and it turned out to be around $470 billion. That was TARP, the full amount, when all was said and done. And that was to backstop the banks and stop the world, the financial markets, from absolutely crashing, right? So backstop all the markets. So we compare and say, hey, we did it last time. We didn't see inflation. Total different scenario. Again, you're looking at the past. But what happened in the past? Well, we didn't give money directly to people and hand them checks even when they were sitting home. What we did is we put a ton of this money in banks to shore up the system. And a lot of this money was not lent out. There was still major restrictions. Even today, there's major restrictions on banks to lend money. Still from those laws passed, Dodd-Frank, in 2009, 2010. So they weren't given directly to people. They were there to backstop the system, that people know, okay, the banks are safe, we're okay, we can operate, and then we all know what happens with distressed assets, and the Fed took and made an absolute fortune on it. So the Fed's happy that they did this because they took over a lot of distressed assets that happened to probably increase 4 to 10x in value. They even took positions in banks with warrants and stuff like that and made a fortune off it. So now they get to this stage and they're like, let's just keep spending money. However, it's a lot different because you're handing people checks directly, which is going to lead to massive, massive, massive inflation, which we're seeing. So now Powell goes on everywhere, last 3 quarters, it's going to be brief. It's going to be transitory. Inflation is going to come down. Now we get news of this new variant. And what does Powell do? Use this as an excuse without knowing any data on this new variant. He knows nothing. Nobody knows nothing about it. Very, very little. And he's testifying in front of Congress today to tell them, to warn them that inflation is probably going to be higher than expected. Think about that for a minute. What a way to not admit that you were wrong, which we told you all along. So we are going to see massive inflation. We're going to continue to see it. If you look at companies, you look at labor shortages, you look at supply constraints, you look at the cost, raw material costs. I mean, companies are going to have to, wage increases are going to be necessary because the cost of living is rising tremendously. I mean, home prices are up 17% year over year. It's insane. I mean, you think this is just going to end? Hey, we live in a world where companies have to see, we want you to see, you have to grow every freaking year, every single year. If not, your stock, we're going to push it down 30, 40%. Look at Peloton. Look at Zoom. We want to see that massive growth continue. There's a reason why Moderna CEO is like, oh, wait, we might need a whole new vaccine. I don't know anything about this variant yet, but we might need a whole new vaccine, and we could do it. And it's going to be mandated. Makes sense. Another $17 billion in sales in the next 2 years. That's pretty good. Good for them. So I don't think that this is factored in. I think it's factored in. Inflation is going to subside. I look at surveys that great companies take of CEOs in Fortune 500, the largest companies, and most of them think that most of them are increasing wages. I think it's like 40, 50%. I think we're increasing wages, but and this from several studies around. Like, it's not exact amounts because I'm just giving like a ballpark average here. But a lot of these CEOs expect inflation to subside, to ease a little bit. I don't see that, especially with the supply chain constraints we still have, which is easing up. That's fine. But now we just passed the infrastructure package. How the hell are we going to get all these materials? We have no logistics. We don't have enough truck drivers, 100,000 short. 1 million over the next 10 years, they're saying. I mean, ports are still backed up, even though it's a little bit better. And now we're throwing all the infrastructure, all the shipping and everything. And we had some former Fed governor say, oh, well, we should ease restrictions on China and tariffs, and that will help lower inflation. Right. That's the answer. Going to have a beautiful Olympics there for a country that started this virus that killed millions and millions of people that the WHO does not want to hold them accountable. They won't account them for doing it. They weren't allowed in the country, right? World Health Organization. Wow. Wuhan, what's going on there? Nope, you can't come in. Other scientists from other countries, hey, let us help. Nope, you can't come in. Why not? Why can't we help you? And then what does the WHO do? Turn around and goes, China deserves credit for handling this the best out of any country. Are you kidding me? I need to get more political than that. But you're asking about Powell, and is this factored in? Look, transitory or a little bit of ease inflation is factored in, but we're going to see inflation continue to rise. We're going to see prices, companies are going to continue to raise prices until they can't. Right now, they can. They raise prices by 10, 20, 30%, and people are still paying them. So if I'm a company, I'm like, let's try to raise them 40%. Let's go 50%. How high are they going to pay? Eventually, they're not going to pay that. Eventually, they're going to say, okay, enough of this. Especially at restaurants and stuff where services, you're getting worse service because there's a labor shortage and not enough people there. Half of the items on the menu are still not freaking there, right? You go to Starbucks and half the things are still not there. At least Starbucks around here. But yet you're going to go there, wait longer, pay more for worse service, and for something on the menu that you like that's no longer there. How long are people going to do that for? Not every company has pricing power. Everybody does now because we're handing out free money like crazy. That's going to change over the next 12 months. You're going to see a big separation you've seen in our companies. So no, I don't think that's factored in. And I think you have to position your portfolio accordingly. Inflation, oil has taken a hit. Might be a good opportunity to get into oil on this hit, 3-month low. Price got wrecked. You're looking at banks do very, very good inflationary environments. And, companies have pricing power, that continue to have pricing power. Because we're seeing companies that don't, like Clorox, and some others do. So very good opportunity there. Let me take one more question here. And this is from Matt. He goes, long-term follow. I want to say thanks for educating me and being the voice of reason during these volatile times. My question. I'm a subscriber to Curzio Research Advisory and Crypto Intelligence and looking to purchase another one of your premium newsletters. I'm leaning towards Curzio Venture, but also considering Moneyflow Trader. Any advice would be appreciated. Right now, Moneyflow Trader is one of the best newsletters that you could have. I create it for this environment. Okay, this is a newsletter that uses options to hedge against the markets. So it puts on ETFs individual names where a 20% fall in a stock, which we're seeing a lot these days, could result in a 3x to 5x gain using these options trades that Jin provides. And it's not just options. She also has like a couple long positions. Doesn't go blindly short where you're going to get wrecked. She teaches you exactly how to do this on your E-Trade account or whatever, Robinhood, whatever you use for options. But these returns are amazing in a down volatile market. However, it's been a bull market for freaking 11 straight years. We're still less than 5% off of all-time highs, even if with this pullback. Virginia killed it when COVID hit during that time. I mean, several positions generate 3x to 5x returns while the market was crashing. So I always say with this newsletter, it's a hedging product. That's why I created it. It's a great hedging product where you take 3%, 2-3% of your portfolio and you invest in some of these names. And if it doesn't work out, chances are, a lot of your stocks are going to go higher and it easily covers that 3%, which is fine. I mean, you look at the last year with it where the S&P is up 20-something%. Big deal. You risk 3% of your portfolio as a what if, right? As an insurance. Big deal. You're still up. But what happens when stuff like this happens and your portfolio goes down 10%? Now you have positions that are going up 3x, 4x, 5x, 7x. And these are option positions that see massive, massive gains if this happens. And you have a year. They're long dated. So they're out of the money right away and you're going to see loss in it out of the way. But when you see a market like this and you protect yourself, it's awesome because that 3% of your portfolio, if this market really comes down, those positions conflate to more than the entire value of your portfolio. So we have Curzio 1 members that own all of our products. This is for you. Pay attention to this product, especially during these volatile times where we don't know what's going to happen over the next couple of weeks. And it's going to be lots of bullshit news stories that scare the crap out of you. You're going to see lots of volatility. Stay-at-home names. Are they back? The reopen names are they're going to come down further. Is it a buying opportunity? I mean, you're going to see massive opportunities throughout the market. But this volatility is going to be crazy, and Moneyflow Trader takes full advantage of that. So it's a newsletter. I love this product. Again, it's been a bull market for a while, and I get it. So, you'll see losses, but it's protection because the bottom line is you want to be in this game for 20, 30 years. You don't want to be in for 2-3 years and lose all your money. And when you see things like this, a lot of people get wrecked. They don't have stop losses. But with this, not only are you not getting wrecked, and we do have stops on our positions and our portfolios, but you're making money when the market comes down, which means you have more money to invest in companies that are down 20, 30%. And a lot of these names get unfairly punished. That's how you become a great investor, by buying stuff as it comes down when it gets dirt cheap, because that's when you can accelerate your gains. Yes, you could buy momentum names and then go higher and higher and higher, right? That's Luke's product. But there's different products for different times. Right now, low crypto intelligence, sold that, love the activity going on, seeing lots of new ideas. That issue is coming out tomorrow. Excited, really, really good pick. Got a lot of new subscribers into crypto intelligence. But Moneyflow Trader right now, and listen, Curzio Ventures, my product, I love small caps right now, but just that's a newsletter right now in this environment that makes a lot of sense. So guys, questions, comments, feel free to email me, frankcurzioresearch.com. I'm sure I'll get lots of emails from this, which I always do because, you talk about COVID and politics and stuff like that. It's always fun. But again, I have your best interests at heart. I don't have a political agenda here. For me, it's making you money, making sure my family's healthy, reporting the facts here, and hopefully this doesn't turn out to be as bad as, few people are projecting. And right now it's not that bad. But, again, we want to protect ourselves. We want to look at the data and the sources that I have, including doctors around the world and stuff, is fantastic. And that's the data I'm going to present with you and even show the data and say, hey, here's the studies. This is it. Here it is. So that can result in a lot of great investment decisions, which we did incredibly well as the market really surged after COVID and getting in it. I mean, we got out before the crash and then we got in pretty much a month or two later, a little bit late, but still some of the gains that we've seen are incredible from those times with hotel companies, Avis Rent-A-Car, whatever. It was a 10x winner for us. So we want to be smart, want to play it right. And again, we want to follow the data and be smart about it and stop watching, crazy stuff where a lot of people have an agenda and are forced to cover that network's agenda. Otherwise, they could lose their job. Same with Hollywood. You better be liberal. You're done. And Hollywood's crazy right now. You have to have. If you want to get a job, that's it. If not, if you're talking out, if you're conservative, it results in you not getting called for jobs right now. It's crazy. It's insane. It's just the way it is. For me, let's look at the facts, stay safe, and invest accordingly. So again, questions, comments, feel free to email frankcurzioresearch.com. That's it for me. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care.